So for you, this is a re-election campaign. Starting off generally, what are some of those big points that you want voters to know? What are some of the things you're running on?
Look, I think we've realized more than ever in the last 5 years that elections really matter. Who you appoint to the Supreme Court matters a lot. You know, here in a state like Connecticut, we were shocked. We were shocked when the court, took away what we thought was a fundamental right, a woman's right to choose. Limiting the ability of states like Connecticut when it comes to gun safety laws. These are things that are taking away our freedom to, protect our citizens. If I look at the primary coming up on the Republican side, I'd be very interested. I mean, let's face it, if the Republicans take the U.S. Senate, they're going to try and outlaw Roe v. Wade across the country. So that's what I think I would have asked the Republican nominees. How would they vote on that? Because that is going to be key. I know Themis would say no.
So you mentioned abortion rights. There are some who say, well, we're in Connecticut. It's traditionally a very blue state. That's not a big issue for us. But it seems like you've made it quite a big part of your campaign, issuing out that message to businesses to come to Connecticut if they want their employees to have access to abortion. Even though Connecticut is such a blue state, why is that still such a big issue for you?
A couple of reasons. We have protected a woman's right to choose. We've done that through legislation. Legislation's as good as the next governor and the next group of legislators. You know, I'm running against somebody who only donated money to the Republican senator candidates who want to outlaw a woman's right to choose across the country, including Connecticut. So they put that front and center as an issue. I'm going to do everything I can to protect a woman's right to choose. That's not going to change on my watch.
Absolutely. When it comes to gun control, obviously we just had the legislation that was mainly introduced by our two senators for Connecticut. How do you feel as governor that that push came from the senators for Connecticut?
I don't think it's ironic. I mean, Chris Murphy and Dick Blumenthal were following the lead of what Connecticut's been doing on gun safety. You know, after the tragedy of Sandy Hook 10 years ago, we've made some changes that are saving lives. Our gun-related deaths, our gun-related shootings are dramatically less than they are in states like Texas and Georgia. And I think Chris Murphy reminded his fellow senators of that.
So coming up, we have, I know you've mentioned Themis already, but we have that Senate primary. I assume you're pushing for Blumenthal in that race in November?
I am. I think Dick Blumenthal has served this state really well. I know that Connecticut does not want to send the 51st Republican senator down to Washington, D.C., tilt the balance, be it the environment, be it gun safety, be it choice, a whole variety of things that will go the wrong direction.
Absolutely. So after your past term in office, looking for re-election now, is there anything that you felt you were really successful with that you want voters to know, anything you accomplished during that term?
Oh, I think so. I mean, the first thing when I was elected was get our fiscal house in order. It was a mess. We were lurching from fiscal crisis to fiscal crisis. We've had 4 straight years of balanced budget and surpluses. Everybody was complaining. We've got unfunded liabilities. Nobody's taking it seriously. We're taking it seriously. We've reduced that. And I'd like to think we showed people we can make government work. You know, I think they saw that during COVID, where public health and all the other departments work together as one to keep people safe. Now we have to build on that, make the investments that keep this state on the right track.
So for you as governor, and especially in this race that's coming up in November, you're not on the primary ballot. You're running uncontested along with Stefanowski. So voters aren't voting for you on primary night on August 9th. But historically, we have low turnout for primaries and then higher turnout in November. As sitting governor, is there any encouragement for residents of Connecticut to turn out to the polls on August 9th?
I think so. Don't take votes for granted. And primaries are incredibly important. Look, when it comes to treasurer, when it comes to secretary of state, the ideological divisions are not as clear as they are maybe for senate or governor or something, but still pay attention. I mean, treasurer is incredibly important. They invest our pension funds, and if we do a little bit better, we have a more secure pension future, or the otherwise.
Absolutely. And so looking ahead to November, I know we might have touched on it a little bit already, but is there any message for voters as why you're the choice in November?
Yeah, I think we've delivered on our promises. You know, we said we're going to get our fiscal house in order. We've done it. We said when we're able to, we're going to cut taxes. We got the biggest middle-class tax cut in the history of the state. You start receiving those checks in the month of August, making a difference in this inflationary period. Everybody else promises, I think we have delivered. And now for the next 4 years, we've really got to make sure the resources we had are invested and make a difference in people's lives. We're here in New Haven. I can take another 20 minutes off that train ride down from New Haven to Stamford to New York City. We got to deliver the goods and make that happen. We got real resources to keep our economy going green, move our transportation fleet all electric, continuing to make progress there. And in particular, the kids. Expansion of daycare, keeping our schools open. Our schools stayed open more than anybody else during the pandemic. We got to build on that because that's our future.
You mentioned COVID response there a little bit. How successful do you think Connecticut has been compared to some other states dealing with the pandemic over the last 2 years?
I don't want to overstate it. We were hit hard during those first few months. It was New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut slammed. It was a good time to be in Montana, actually. But I think as soon as we hit our ground, we did outperform. I think we did save a lot of lives. The people of Connecticut looked out for each other, and that allowed us to get our restaurants, that allowed us to get our schools, get our summer camps going. We kept manufacturing open. We kept construction open. So we did everything we can to keep things open safely, and I think that's benefiting us now. One way that it's benefiting is more people were moving into the state of Connecticut during that time, not the other way. Young families, not people like me, young families. And that's really part of the energy why people, I think, are more optimistic about the state today.
Do you find people are tired with COVID now? I know we have other illnesses like monkeypox and things rearing their head, but obviously the coronavirus is still around, just with not a lot of restrictions anymore, like masking or social distancing. Do you find that people are kind of tired of those sort of restrictions?
I think they're tired. They're tired. We've got the ability to keep ourselves safe, so you don't need those restrictions. But we did something on monkeypox this morning, and I just joked. The name just plays into people's sense that no more, I can't take it anymore. I said, let's call it, oh my God, not another pox. And I think there's a certain sense of that, but we've got the ability to keep ourselves safe now.
Absolutely. So looking ahead to November now, you mentioned a little bit a couple questions ago, the next 4 years. If you do win the general election, what are those first few items on your to-do list?
I just came from an event at Biohaven here, big life sciences company. We've got 170 interns in the life sciences, and we have some of the best schools in the world here in Connecticut, and best colleges, and our workforce is our competitive advantage. So I have a priority, continue to train people for the jobs that are out there waiting for you right now. I try and recruit businesses every day. The number one thing they ask me is, am I going to be able to get the trained people I need to continue doing life sciences research like Biohaven?
Right. So what are you doing to help people in Connecticut who are suffering from inflation? Everything's more expensive now. Luckily, gas prices are starting to come down a little bit, but we've seen a lot of those issues, a lot of labor shortages across the country. So in terms of the economy here in this state, are there any things that you're doing to help people who, are facing expensive rent, inflation, things like that?
Yeah, what I can do as governor is make life a little more affordable during an inflationary period. And that's why, as I said, we got a $650 million tax cut, really focused on the middle class, not an income tax cut for folks at the top. Middle class making a difference for you. You're going to see that reflected in terms of lower property taxes. If you're a senior, you're going to see you're not paying any income tax now on your pension or 401k. And by the way, since I got you, and hopefully this goes before Sunday, sign up for the child tax rebate. Do that right now. You got 3 kids under the age of 18, that's $750. And that's money that you're going to get before the start of the new school year. Apply now.
You mentioned during inflation, but are any of these cuts something you'd want to continue if you won in November into your next term?
I would. I don't overpromise, though, because generally we lurked from prosperity to a fiscal crisis. We've done that for 20 years. I put in place a budget that's built to last. So I know what I can expect over the next year or two. I've got a rainy day fund. Everybody wants to spend the rainy day fund, but I've got it in place to make sure we don't have to raise your taxes, don't have to cut education funding if we end up with a recession.